This is going to be a little long presentation because we are covering two things, two offshoots of Sanatana Dharma, um, Jain Dharma and Zoroastrianism. So we call them in India, after they migrated, we call them Parsi. So that you understand what we are talking about. And the reason also that historically it is part of Sanatana Dharma, and that is why I included in Indian Dharma tradition, faith traditions. Okay, so Jain, historicity of Jain Dharma. Jain literally means Jain. So actually, I was under the impression that Jin means knowing. Jin means victor, one who has conquered himself. It is the fifth largest religion in the world, not outside, but it is mostly concentrated in India. It started as Shraman Dharma. Shraman is that you move around and give the preachings or, oral, Nirgrantha. They did not start with a manual. And I don't think I have seen a manual even today. Um, it is also known, there are commentaries about Jain Dharma, and they provide us the guidelines, the customs, their practices, beliefs, historicity, everything. It's also known as Arhat. Jains believe that chronologically, Jain Dharma runs parallel to Vedic Dharma. This I did not know. About 15 years back, there was a conference, and the Jain's representative claimed that there is a mention of Rishabh Dev, and Rishabh Dev is in Vedic, in Vedas. So that means the tradition runs parallel to Vishwamitra and Vashisht and all those rishis. So they believe there are 24 Tirthankar. Mahavira was the last one. That is another thing that I learned recently. Mostly it is preached that Mahavir was the founder of Jain Dharma. That's not so. He was the last one. So 22nd Tirthankar was contemporary of Shri Krishna. So that is how they have brought the parallelism between two ancient traditions. So that is something very interesting. Uh, how to go forward. Oh, that's good. Yes, so Vardhaman Mahavir, that was his given name. Mahavir was added later on. He was born in Vaishali, Bihar, India. Interestingly, Vaishali and the place where Gautam Buddha was born, Kapil Vastu, they are very close by, you see, and both are at that time, under the Maghreb Empire. So their path of austere life and reaching a state of self-realization. So the ultimate goal in all of them is reaching mukti. Mukti, self-realization, reaching a point where you are totally understanding, you understand what really means to conquer yourself and to reach a place of such good karma that you ultimately get nirvana, mukti, and in Zoroastrian they call it muktad, basically the same thing. So these are different paths to the same goal, through karma or through bhakti or through austerity, or preaching, all of them, the constant point is this: self realization. That is what we are seeking. Liberation from anguish, suffering, conflict, dilemma, all of that. So they had monks and devotees. Now, getting used to it. So their basic beliefs are non-violence, non-possession, not even clothes. So tolerance, pluralism with diverse thinking. You see, diverse thinking is very common. Actually, it is the basis from which so many different paths emerged. The very fact that it is not a one book, one ideology tradition in Hindu Dharma or Sanatana Dharma, that means that you are find your own path. When you find your own path, basically that is freedom of choice and freedom of will to debate or discuss, whether in as introversion or extroversion with other people or in a group, some path. So this path is called an ekantavad, which means that you can have any number of beliefs as long as you stick to non-violence, non-possession, and austerities. So non-stealing, celibacy, austerities, all these are also part of Dharam Das Lakshanam. So there is basically no difference. And when we discuss both Dharam, and there also we saw the middle path, and they mentioned all of these things. So you can understand that the basic beliefs and common philosophy is the same underlying philosophy. In the medieval times, now this is another point, very interesting, because most people believe that Jains do not believe in fighting. When there is a hinsa, and then there is you are not doing anything. And this kind of mythical notion, today, I really want everyone to understand where the nonviolence begins and where it ends. There is a very fine line where if you do not act and protect your dharma or protect your country or protect your family or community, it becomes cowardice. That is the difference where Gandhi took us with his ahimsa business to cowardice. Do nothing. That is not Gita say what Gita says. That is not what Vedas say, and certainly not Jains say. Actually, they did serve in different fights against the invaders. So there is a saint. I'm giving his quote. This quote I have taken from Sandhya Jain. Uh, and it says a king should strike down only those enemies of his kingdom who appear on the battlefield. And that is exactly what the warfare rules as laid down in Mahabharata and during the Ramayana period, that you do not attack women or farmers or communities or cities or anybody, just those people who are bearing arms, but never those who are downtrodden, weak, or who are friends. So it is not rampant killing whoever comes in the way. No. That is why Kurukshetra, it was a desert area, no city nearby at that time. So similarly, this is the underlying point. Jains reconciled to necessary violence, which means with the concept of Virodi himself. If the opposing person coming here is going to resort to violence, then as a last resort, what are we going to do? We are not going to say, okay, and you take the cottage and I'm going to the forest. I mean, that kind of nonsense, nobody believed in. The Jains, the Buddha, nobody believed in except Gandhi, his twisted brain brought that up. And he eliminated the second part of it. And you see, the quote, Ahimsa Parama Dharma, has a second line to that. And that when Hinsa is killing innocent people, then Hinsa is the way to do. So I have discussed it many times. Jains have never confused Ahimsa and cowardice and never hesitated. So this is the take from today's session. I mean, when we say that we are bursting myths, this is one of the myths. So fasting, no food after sunset. Even today, there are many Jains who don't. And respect for all life, environmental ethics, and preserving ecological balance. This is something uh, more prominent in their belief system. They are strict vegetarians, and they even try to cover their nose so that by mistake they inhale a um, living microorganism or something. So Jain continued the timeless tradition of Dharmic pluralism, which I mentioned, and Ekantavad is pluralism. Attaining, and this is parallel, attaining full control over the desire for food, desire for sitting in different postures for comfort, and desire for sleep, as per the teachings of Jain. One should contemplate on one's own Atma, Chitta. And that is exactly what meditation and samadhi and sadhana is. So you will find no difference. So here is another from scholar from Belgium. He says this purely Upanishadic message. It proves that Jainism is unthinkable without Vedism. Of course, he is a foreigner, and Vedism and Upanishadism, that isn't business. Okay. Now, this is, I did not write anything because I'm just explaining. In the beginning, non-possession meant that you don't own any clothes and you don't wear any clothes. So they were called digambars. Ambar is a dress or clothing, and digan, not visible or not worn. And then later on, women also joined and they wore white clothes, very minimal clothing, just like Brahmins do, um, even up to today. Uh, they are called Svetambar, so white clothes. So for a long time, the Gambar was the tradition. And there was one more thing about it. Probably that is the reason because there were no clothes. But in any case, Jains forbade anybody to cross the seven oceans. In fact, anyone to leave this subcontinent. So that is the reason there are very few later on they built. Earliest about 900, 1000 years, and there are no temples outside of India. So, so every person has four depths. So this is Purusharth. They are not, they don't believe in self-abnegation and that go and live in the forest and do nothing. That is not one of their any one of their concepts. So there are married people, they are living like normal life, contributing to society. They are thinkers, researchers, and mathematicians. I mean, they are doing karma according to their own capabilities, inclinations. So Purusharth and the rule of karma. These two things are important. It is not that everybody should be a bhikshu. No, even as a grist person, you can do austerities. That is exactly what it means. So, and this is a dialogue later on between Sri Krishna And one of the Tirthankars, he was 22nd Tirthankar, his name was Rishtanemi. And at the age of 12, he went to Sri Krishna and said that I want to be renouncing the world and I don't want to get into any other uh, profession or, occupation. So Sri Krishna advised him against this. He reminded that every person who is born has to do some purusharth because he has four debts that he has to pay. Debt to the devas but through devotion and preserving environment, a debt to the parents by marrying and procreation, a debt to the society by showing humility and service, and debt to the teacher by spreading knowledge. So these four debts are to be discharged, and Sri Krishna says that you have to get married and procreate because you will not be um, discharging one of them. You will be dying with one of the debts. So this is a very interesting thing because when I thought about this, grace the life, it brings challenges right away when you are getting into challenges and interacting with other people intimately or as a family, you are involved. You have desires, you have alternative goals, you have choices, and you are impacted by adipothic events. What is going around you in the material world that is called adipothic. So when you are in the graced life, what is going to happen? When you are marrying, your wife brings her karma. So you have two sets of karma, sanskar, coming together, negative or positive, whichever. And then a child is born, he brings or she brings her own sanskar, previous balance of liabilities or assets, and you are affected by that. In spite of your best effort, if the child goes a wrong way or does things which are like negative actions, that is his karma, but you are affected. So this kind of interaction in the Gres ashram, the challenges, the setting of the goals, giving choices, drawing a line between giving choices to children and restricting it, all of these and affected by adipotic and social events, it is very hard to avoid negative karma. So this really is the most difficult task, paying that debt to for the parents to give birth to you. So going through various cycles of birth and death, one achieve moksha. Mostly people won't be achieving moksha because they are so stuck and they are tempted to do something wrong for the sake of their children, family, or even their own greed or something. So it will take several births and deaths to cancel bad karma through good karma. This was, as I study again and again, it dawns to me how difficult it is. You really cannot be um, not doing any negative thing. Somehow or other, your duties are such that you will be doing something here and there which is not acceptable socially or ethically or morally. So Jains believe there are six yugas. We believe in four, they believe in six. So he said the first one that Satyug we call, they call it bliss and contentment. And then the second yuga is contentment. The third is contentment and suffering. So, and then there is suffering and pleasure, and then there is mostly suffering, and then there is only suffering. So we have Satyug, Treta Yuga, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the shortest. but they have all of them the same cycle of time. Now, in Vedic Dharma, they say that after Kali Yuga, Satyuga will start. There will be a pause, and that Satyuga will start. But here, Jain Dharma believes that it is a reverse way it will go. So the time cycle will go first only suffering, then mostly suffering. Eventually, you will evolve yourself to the state of consciousness where there is bliss and contentment. So when you are here, you cannot suddenly start with here unless there is a total annihilation of Srishti and something starts from scratch. It's not possible. So this is very interesting that you have to start where you were at the end of the cycle. Jains as pioneers in setting up hospitals for birds and animals, they were the first. So, and the measurement of time cycles, as I mentioned, and continued the timeless tradition of Dharmic pluralism. I mean, this is their contribution uh, to the world of wisdom. There were several centers of learning and education. So many universities were started in Gujarat, in Mysore, as they spread around. They moved to Kerala, they moved to, during the Sangam period, they moved to what is we now call Tamil Nadu and Kerala and Karnataka. All of these places, they started universities and also monasteries. So these were the famous university, Udayagiri, Ratnagiri, Ujjain, Mysore in Karnataka, Girinar in Gujarat. In the field of mathematics, they made several contributions, expanding some of the concepts which were already there. The Jains were the first to discard the idea that all infinities were same or equal. And that is the common perception, even my own. Infinity is infinity, and what is different? So, and then I was given a lecture, short one, and I understood that there are an infinite number of infinite sizes. So they did not, and they must have elaborated. I did not go in that depth. I just tried to understand the concept uh, that at the end, what is Puran? You take away Puran from Puran, Puran remains. But that is a very oversimplification. And I'm happy with simplification because this must be a very tough concept to understand. So in 4th century BCE, Jain Sutras, they give the length of the diameter and circumference of certain circular bodies. Here, circular body doesn't mean the area that we draw as a circle. Here means those in motion, planets and satellites. So Jain commentators has quoted 3 rules regarding permutations and combinations. And they are in Sanskrit verse. And Magadi verse. They call it, half of it is Magadi, half of it is Prakrit. That was the language at that time, became most common. Some famous mathematicians and astronomers, Bhadrabahu, and he lived in Kusampura, that is Magadi. Ujjain school, Indian astronomers, Brahmagupta and Bhaskaracharya, they belong to that. And then in Mysore, Mahavira. Actually, what happened that as conflicts and foreign invasions, even the Huns came from outside, Ushans came from, some assimilated and actually became more uh, 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 more in depth in Sanatana Dharma than many people at that time. But this kind of spread happened because of the invasions, where the people who came, they wanted only their own sect to prevail. The similarities you have seen already continued the timeless tradition, pluralism, and debates and discussions, and subduing the mind, and being a yogi, and all of this. These are all Hindu ideas, Sradhanar. So this is a um, further uh, quote that I took. It says that all-inclusive one who embodies all these things. So we are one who takes a pledge and controls his mind and worship Shiva. Shiva embodies all these things. Those who know Vedanta call him Shiva, the knowledgeable. Some call him indestructible and ageless Brahma. Others call him Buddha, Jain, Jina, or Vama. So we can see this is more comprehensive explanation. I mean, in 4 lines, who do we call all-inclusive and plural? One who believes that Shiva is the same for knowledge and different qualities and all that. So this is Jan symbol. So you see 3 lines, 3 dots on the forehead, and this is swastika, and the mandals on the hand. That karma is in your own hand. As the cycle of life moves, your purusharth is going to determine your destiny, outcome. This is Shwetambar. And this is, I'm going to show the picture. It is in Mysore, and it is the largest statue about 100 years back, 18 meters in height. And in order to reach those 18 meters, you have to climb about 640 steps. So it is like really going through, I think, Tirth. Going to Tirth is considered hard. This is harder than this. And once you reach, you stretch your neck to see where it ends. And I'll show the picture. So the way the construction is done, and they show the austere figure and serene smile, but unattached, totally detached. So the stark nudity of the sculpture indicates absolute renunciation, Keval. And his name is Gomateshwar Bahubali. Actually, he is the second Tirthankara, son of Rishabdev. And this is the picture. I took half an hour because it couldn't cover the screen. And this is architecture. These vines grew for 12 years. He was in austere meditation, and the vines and creepers grew. Don't think about this background. When we went there, it was under construction. Some renovation was going on. So this is the feet. So the size of the feet and the legs, and this base shows how big and colossal this monument is. It is in Shravan Balagola, and nearby Chandragupta gave up his throne and became a Jain monk, and that is where he shifted. nearby there is Chandranagari. And Muni Sushil Kumar, I met him in 71, 73 or 4. He was the first Jain Muni who crossed the ocean. And that is why it is, I gave this picture. So, this. Now, Zoroastrianism, we are now shifting. Um, who are Zoroastrian? Historicity. In the beginning, I think fourth or fifth lesson, we mentioned a war between 10 kings versus one king. So Sudha was one king, and there were 10 other kings on the in the Panchanad area. So after they lost, they dispersed. That also I mentioned. So Dhruv, they went, fire worshippers, Panis, Parsas, Parthians, Vishyas, Vishnus, they went out. Some went north, some went on the west, and some went further up towards Russia. Near Ukraine, there is still people who are called, they call themselves firmament worshippers. I met one other person in a conference, and she explained to me what does that mean. Firmament, we offer prayer to all the tattvas. They offer only to those tattvas energies which are above the atmosphere of the earth, because they believe, and this is they call themselves firmament worshippers. Through contact and trade, Jain beliefs spread, and Vedic beliefs were taken by the people who migrated from India to Iran and other places, Lebanon. So, and continued contact and trade. So there is an interaction. That is why there is so much of parallelism in Vedic Dharma, eternal tradition, and all the Pan-Asian cultures. So immigrants took the cultural traditions and Vedic ceremonies with them. So Parsis have 16 holy pilgrimages. And where are they located? They are not west of Iran, they are east of Iran, because that is where they came from. So Gaya and the Himalayan temples and caves, all of those were their pilgrimages. So every time they offered prayers, they looked towards the east. And that is also the reason why there were so many visits of the Parsis to India at that time, and there was an interaction. So also known as Parsis, because most of them were concentrated in 2 or 3 provinces known as Pars. Their prophet Zarathustra. So Sutra, the one giant person who wrote in sutras. The same like Yoga Sutra and Ashtadhyayi. So he is known to the West as Zoroaster. He lived around 1000. He himself composed the teachings, sermons, prayers, and the language in which he wrote is known as Avasta. That is why his book is called Zendavasta. So that it has 5 parts. And you see the similarity in the words. The first part is book of worship, and they are in the form of stories, divine stories and divine songs. And the name is Yashna. Yashna, you see, if you pronounce it slightly differently, it's Yajna. Just as Yajna is Sanskrit word and Yajna is Hindi word, and there is Yashna. And Yashna, the other close word became Jashan, which means celebration. Celebration of the divine, offering to the divine. This is a celebration. And you can do it as gathas and exactly, like in temples they do um, songs and offerings. The second part consists of invocations to the Lord of the spiritual world, and that is fire. So this is called a whisper. There must be some Parsi pronunciation, which I'm just reading literally, phonetically. The third part is dealing with purity routines, guiding people how to ward off evil spirits. So, to remove the negativity. So, epic hymns are the fourth book known as Just and Narrations. The fifth part is scriptures, and this is the little book of prayers which most people carry with themselves. So they believe in mandalas, and I showed the hand in the Jains also mandala, and mandal is a Sanskrit word. So they also believe in mandals. And their major seasonal ceremonies is the Gambhar. And then they worship Mitra. And Indra Vrithan, which means that if there is a sun Vritti, you counter that. Indra is to be the god of the Deva for helping you. Yama, Yama. So you see, this is the Sanskrit name, and this is the Parsi name, this is the Sanskrit name, this is the, and same with Mahda, the supreme being Mukta, liberated Atma. See, I mentioned Mukta Atma, Sanskrit word. This is a very interesting word. Fravishi, Fravashi, spirit of the ancestors. What is the word that we call Pitru, right? Ascendant, our ancestors, and they call it Fravishis. And in between word in the northwest of India is it is Farishta, and Farishta means angel. So in other words, their Atma has gone, and now it is in the upper abode. The similarities of culture and even the languages show their common origin. And Yashna, I already mentioned. So they are foreign five worship of the forces of nature, righteous living, seven principles, same, charity, truthfulness, celebration of Gamba. This is something different. It is 3 day ceremony after a death. So there's a mourning period, and the second day they are releasing themselves from the effect of that grief, and the third is celebration. So worship of the divine, building up warehouses. I mean, this is all parallel. There is so much commonality. So this migration, then they came back. So 6th century they came back, and they contacted Shankaracharya of Dwarka. And they requested him to give them asylum because the Muslim invasions had already started, and they were being just killed. And the Shankaracharya said that you should ask the king also. The king said, we have enough people here, and why should we give you our glass of milk is full? Why should we give you shelter? Have another pant. One of the Parsi, he said that we'll be like sugar in the milk. So it won't add to the level of the glass, but it will be assimilated in that. Very interesting conversation. So they promise that they will be culturally assimilated because they were originally from Vedic, to obey the laws of the land, respect the customs of other communities, and Zoroastrians have kept their word. Not one person Zoroastrian you can say, I mean, one person doesn't mean exactly one. Any prominent person, you can say that he violated that word. He was disloyal to the country. As a community, they are the most loyal, principled people in India, and their contributions are many. So Parsis want this is their calendar. Um, Originally, they had a leap year calendar, and after 120 years, they used to uh, uh, synchronize it with the solar calendar. After the Arab invasions, this calendar is not followed. Parsis in India use 365 days divided in 12. So each month is 30 days. Now, where are the 5 days gone? The 5 extra days at the end of the year are for prayers, and the Parsi New Year is 21st March, the government. And it's Chaitra month is also the Kali Yuga era New Year. This is so difficult. Okay, in customs, keeping the fire in the temple all the time, celebrating the arrival of each season. What we do? 3 days more. Many Parsis in India observe Holi and decorate their hands and feet, and the dress style is Indian, regional. And now there are some pictures after this. Jamshed Navroz is the celebration of the New Year, feasting, drinking. 10 days before the New Year Mukta ceremony and all the festivals, there is cleaning of the house, just as we do in Diwali and other places. Floral designing in front of the houses and temples, like we do Rangoli. Jashna is held New Year. Birth and death anniversary of we do too. On the birth anniversary, there are feasts and festivities. On the death, they preach about Zoroastrian. So this is one of the temples. It says no admission except Parsis. So, and you see the garlands and the structure. Okay. And the next one, you see, Parsi girl, she has covering of the head. She's offering flowers. And flowers are, petals are decorated on the floor. And this is a Parsi wedding. Now, how is it any different from any Hindu, Sikh, or Jain marriage or Sanatan Dharma, Vedic Dharma marriage ceremony? It's the same thing. We are blending each other, right? And red, prominent. And this is my friend, and she gave me all these pictures. And she also revealed one very, very interesting fact. In the encounter of religions, some of the famous Parsis, and then I will talk about the cultural interactions. Field Marshal Manikshah, Homi Baba, Jamshedji Tata, Ratan Tata, Dadabhai Navroji, Zubin Mehta, and you can go on and on. Now, what I need to okay. What I want to say that as far as the 5 traditions are concerned, we are on the same page, and the intermarriages are common and culturally compatible, traditionally and culturally compatible. Now, where comes the issue, the problem? The problem, and this needs to be understood, that whose religion is followed by the children if they are in the encounter of religions. More and more these things will be happening, and this is to be understood what are the different customs in different traditions in these cultures. As far as Jains and Buddha and Hindu and Sikh, the tradition has the same, that it is mother's religion, but patriarchy. Father's last name, but it is mother's religion. And luckily, they are so compatible that whether it is Jain or Buddha or Hindu, there's absolutely no difference in traditions and no conflict. So whether it is mothers or fathers. Now comes those faith traditions, religions, which are dogmatic and which are one book. They do not admit any variation. So there they have a pact. So the pact among the Jews and Christians, and everybody should know this thing. And please spread it also, the understanding. It is the mother's religion which is followed by interfaith marriages. In other words, if a Jew marries a Roman Catholic or a Christian, the religion of the children will be Roman Catholic or Christian. That is why Jews insist that if the spouse is if it's a man, he will marry either a Jew or convert the girl into Judaism. So this is to be understood. And in the Christians, if they marry a Jew, then it is her religion that is to be followed. So there is the exclusivity, and you understand. Now comes the variation, where those are compatible in the sense that they believe in Moses' one book Dharma, Christians, Jesus' one book Dharma, nothing beyond that. I have attended at least, 3 or 4 interfaith conferences almost every third year in this country. And every time at the end, when the question was asked, do you accept and tolerate their traditions and faith? So Hindus, Buddha, and even the Sufis, some of them, they said that yes, we tolerate them. Whereas all the Baptists and Roman Catholics and so many of them and Muslims, they said no. We do not believe and we will not admit. Now, what does that mean? That means if it is a Muslim, there is no way, whether it is the mother is Muslim or father is Muslim, it is Muslim. So whether the man converts or the woman converts, nikah cannot happen. So the important point is that Indira Gandhi, when she married Firoz Khan, Indira Nehru, when she married Firoz Khan, son of Yunus Khan, she became Muslim. She had a Muslim name, and the ceremony was nikah. See? And this in 1942, when this happened, Nehru ran to Gandhi and said that she has married a Muslim. What am I going to do? I have dreams that she will be one of the days the prime minister after me. Imagine, even at that time, he had the desire to build his own dynasty, as monarchy is hereditary. He tried his level best. And Mahatma Gandhi was such a Mahatma. I mean, it's common. Gandhi was such a crook. He was always thinking of, for some deviation, a clever way of hiding the truth. So he said, Jawahar, you do the Vedic ceremony. And I will adopt them and give my name. This was one. So this was agreed, everything was an eyewash, Vedic ceremony, and people forget. They have such short-term memory and propaganda, Congress rule, they forgot everything. Then somewhere along the line, they decided that no. Gandhi came not because Gandhi gave his name, but Yunus Khan's wife was a Parsi, and her name was similar to Gatsy or the N in it. I couldn't really get the exact spellings phonetically. So it is Gandhi from that Parsi mother's name. Now, Parsi Dharma does not allow a woman's Dharma to be followed by children. This is fundamental till this day, that if a Parsi lady marries anybody outside Dharma, any other religion, her children will be either Christian or Muslim or whatever. She will also become Muslim, probably. So, anybody who says that she was Parsi and therefore these people had Parsi, uh, great grandparents, is total nonsense. Total nonsense. That is where the cultural assimilations and diversification and admission and not admission enter the equation. The other day there was another Mahanubhav, a great person, was giving a lecture. He was married to a Christian. He gave a lecture at a university, and he says when there are in the encounter of different faith traditions, we do 50-50. I say, well, I was attending that seminar. I say, what is 50-50? You have half of Bhagavad Gita and half of Bible. What exactly means 50-50? He says, that is what is called compromise. Where is the compromise? I said, you please produce the document which is compromise. He says, for example, my one son is named Christian and the other son is named. What has that name to do with anything? You can give a name Samir. Ultimately, people call the person Samir. It doesn't, name does not mean anything. It is what you represent. And the culture you are absorbing or you are surrounded on. And what is drilled in you. You see, that is what matters. So this point, please understand and make sure, because there will be a lot of Hindu girls marrying right before our eyes, other faith tradition. And, every generation has to reinvent itself and you have no say. You can only make a personal choice, not their choices, 2 generations away, or one, for that matter. But you should know your rights. A Hindu marries a Jew or a Christian, mothers have a legal right to raise children as Hindu. And that is something which Hindus need to tell them. No 50-50 business. That is confusing people and that is utter nonsense. I don't know why such persons are given the podium to spill out their personal experiences and how they compromise and lay down as a roadmap for the other interfaith marriages. So we have today emphasized that all 5 traditions are Indic tradition, Hindu tradition, Sanatana Dharma. And in one of the earlier lessons, I showed the infinite diagram and, and I showed the place of each. Dharmic tradition, Panth. And Panth again is a Sanskrit word, Path. Path became in Prakrit Panth, and Panth became path in English. So if anybody says, Sanskrit is derivative of a Proto-European language or something, that again you can see utter nonsense. Okay. So the true takeaway from this lesson is that try to understand the customs and traditions of each dharma tradition, faith tradition. Where there is a conflict of culture, one book versus anekantavad, then you have to understand what are the rights of the woman, what are the rights of man, and who the children will be, how they will be raised. Otherwise, these things seem like mundane, but they have a living relevance because now there is so much of dispersal of different culture. And when they say pluralism, pluralism actually has to mean something. Where there is a line, where there is no line. Pluralism doesn't mean that everybody will be split 50-50. 50 is yours and 50 is. That's not possible. So, having said that, it was such a long lesson, but I had to show what Pan Asian culture became as a victim and as a victim of propaganda and hearsay. You see, sometimes Dantakatha, this is here, this is called, gossip. Yeah, Dantakatha, gossip. So I did that. Thank you. So this meeting has been. And now, if anybody has raised hand, please unmute yourself